died and are at the pearly gates. St. Peter is there. And he asks the first one, what would you like said at your, the last word said for you? And he goes, well, I was a physician. So the last words I'd like said for me was how good I was as a physician and how many people I saved. And he asked the next one, what would you like said? And the guy goes, well, I was a husband, father, and teacher, so I hope they talk about how good a husband and father I was and how I really impacted the people I taught. And they asked the third one, he goes, well, I'd rather they just said, look, he's alive. Okay, who's moral? So why don't we start off with a definition. Moral implies conformity to established sanctioned codes or accepted notions of right and wrong. That is the definition of moral. So back in the 16, 17, and 1800s, incest was rampant among the European royalty. And because everybody in the realms took their cues from their royalty, it was rampant. And morally, because the royalty was doing it, it was considered correct. It was considered moral to sleep with your brother or sister. Not so much today. There was a time when people only lived to 36. That was the average lifespan. So getting married and having sex at 12 was considered moral. Not so much today. Morals change. But ethics do not. Let me read you what the ethical standard is. Principles that, when followed, promote such things as trust, good behavior, fairness, and kindness. If everyone lived ethically, this would be a much better place. But people have a tendency to live morally instead of ethically when everybody's morals are different. Somebody who goes around who says pro-life and then blows up an abortion clinic thinks they are doing it from a moral value, but it's not very ethical. Suicide bombers who are killing the infidels believe they are morally correct. Ethically, not so much. China. Here's their set of morals. Rulers should be benevolent and subjects loyal. Parents to be loving, but a child obedient. Husbands are to be good and fair, and wives understanding. An elder sibling is to be gentle, but a younger sibling needs to show respect. And older friends are to be considerate, but younger friends reverential. These 5 relationships were written by Confucius. They have been following this rule of morals for thousands upon thousands of years. They absolutely believe that the first rule of morality is to be loyal to the king, the emperor. That's first, before individuality. I mean, nowhere on here do they talk about the moral of individual rights. These is what they believe. Now, here's the thing about this. It's a very different set of morals than we have. And yet we go around in the world thinking we're positive that we hold the moral standard. And the Chinese are like, what are they doing over there? Why do they keep trying to push their morals on us? We've had the same morals for thousands upon thousands of years. Why are you trying to put your morals on us? And yet we go around, people go around all the time saying, to enforce my morals, I will kill you. I will do whatever it takes to make sure my morals are followed. This goes on all over the world, right? But we are one of the biggest, culprits of this, saying that our morals must be the moral standard of the world. Now, when I say we, I just mean us as a country. Now, personally, I like our idea of individual freedom. I don't like how sometimes we push it on others. I don't like how all of a sudden we have, think we have a right to push moral standards on other people. Because it turns out there's a lot of the world that thinks we're the oppressor. By the way we do things in the world. The thing about ethics is it starts with doing no harm. Here, let me read you. The thing about it, that you never harm another person. So I got some quotes here for you. First one from Ernest Holmes. Anything that will enable us to express greater life, greater happiness, greater power, so long as it does not harm anyone, must be the will of God for us. As much as life as we can conceive will become part of our experience. But it starts with doing no harm. Hippocratic oath, first do no harm. There was known 2,500 years ago, an ethical standard was set for healers that we could be taking on any day for ourselves. First, do no harm. Another one. You can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him. How about how we treat those who can do something for us but aren't? Isn't that the thing that actually pisses us off even more? Is when somebody could be doing something for us, but they're not. How do we treat them? Do we treat them with respect? Do we do no harm? Paladin Gyatso, one of my favorite heroes who you hear me talk about all the time. This is the guy who was tortured by the Chinese for 33 years. And I harp on this guy all the time because he stands for something that so few Christians do, which is love thy enemy. Jesus comes along, right? We have this Old Testament. You talk about the morality of the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. The morality of the Old Testament is an eye for an eye. The morality of the New Testament is love thy neighbor, love thy enemy, turn the other cheek. I have found nowhere in the New Testament where Jesus speaks about bombing, killing, or forcing anybody else to be different than who they are. It is our willingness to force others to change that is may be moral, but is absolutely unethical. And so that is the stand in which morals become sticky. Morals become something that, had changes. I mean, one of the reasons I brought up the 1800s is morals keep changing. The death penalty back in the 70s became morally wrong. Now back in the 2000s, it's becoming morally right again. It will change again because morals change. Ethics don't. Ethics are do no harm. And here's this guy who lives more, a Tibetan monk lives closer to Christianity than any Christian I ever met. He stands for what Jesus actually said. There are folks who go around who say the Bible is literal, that the world was created in 7 days, and yet do not take literally as much as this gentleman, Paladin Gyatso, takes literally the idea of loving thy neighbor. There he is in captivity for 33 years, and his biggest quandary is, in fact, that he's being tortured every single day. His biggest quandary is, how do I keep loving my torturers? And he comes out the most enlightened guy I have ever seen in the planet. Now, as I have said before, that's not a game I want to play. It was his game. But what game are we playing here? You've heard me talk about, that this is a vacation from this being one in spirit. We come in, we got a blip in these bodies, we get to spend it any way we want. And so some folks spend it trying to take advantage of others. Some folks spend it, getting to be leader of the pack of a whole bunch of folks who hate somebody else. Some folks spend it trying to do good in the world. Most of us spend it, being good people and going on in our lives. And so how does all this come back to science of mind and what we believe here, what we put attention on, what we focus on, we give power to. And so, righteousness, this is a really interesting thing. Jesus' definition of righteous is extremely different from how it mostly gets used in the world. Mostly how it gets used in the world is that we talk about, being right. Right and wrong. This is right, this is wrong. I feel it in my bones. This is right, this is wrong. It must be right. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to enforce what I think is right. That's how righteousness is used mostly. But here's what Jesus said about righteousness. Here's what Jesus said about righteousness. Getting there. There we go. Righteous according to Jesus. It denotes one who is holy in heart and observant of the divine law in practice. Purity of heart, rectitude of life, conformity of heart and life to divine law. Wow, isn't that what we talk about here all the time? Conformity of our heart to divine law. I mean, that is righteous. Not whether we think somebody else is what they're doing is right or wrong, but that are we conforming to divine law? What divine law is that? That we are powerful, creative, spiritual beings. What we put focus on creates in the world. And so are we focused on kindness? Are we focused on the ethical standards of trust, building trust, good behavior that builds trust? I mean, right now in our country, we have a tremendous amount of distrust towards Muslims in general, even though it's only a few that are doing all the harm. That in Muslim, in the Quran, it states very clearly, do not do harm. And there are millions and millions of Muslims who live by that, and yet we sit here, instead of building a bridge of trust, and I'm talking about us as a country. I'm not talking about us sitting in this room. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but this is what came up for me to preach to this week, so here I am doing it. But how does this play down into the smaller world? When I mean that, I mean into a personal life. Anytime we think we're right. If we think we're right, and because we think we're right, we're treating somebody else badly by giving them a cold shoulder, maybe raising our voice. In fact, if we're angry about anything, the odds are it's because we think we're right and have been wronged. And so we get to look at that is, are we in divine law in that moment in which somehow we think we have been wronged? Is it really possible to be wronged if our heart is in line with divine law? Is it? Is it? I mean, if you think it is, tell me. So then what we're looking at here is how to get purity of heart, how to clean ourselves up around all that in each and every moment. Because what we focus on, what we give attention to, we give power to. And so the more we are focusing on divine law, the more we are bringing divine law into life, the more we are bringing the true teachings of Jesus into life, not the ones that most Christians talk about, which really has more to do with the Old Testament than the new one. Some of my favorite quotes of Jesus are in what's called the Beatitudes. And when you think of righteousness, the way he speaks of it as being in alignment with divine law through our hearts and our minds, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Isn't that really true for us when we are in line with divine law? How satisfying that feels. Those moments we get to have that alignment, it feels so darn good. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I believe that's what Paladin Gyatso realized, that by being persecuted for being in line with divine law, he saw heaven right here on earth. I believe that what I have just read to you is Jesus' standard of ethics that he has offered to us as a standard to lift ourselves up. When we talk about the Christ consciousness within, which, this being Christmas month, I'll probably be doing quite a bit. We are talking about this sense of open heart and working towards an alignment with divine law so that our lives can feel what it is to feel that deeper love, that deeper sense of humanity, that deeper sense of joining for all of us. We can rise together. I challenge you to rise, to take a look at each moment of your life, what you are judging as right and wrong, and see if in that moment you can rise above your morality to the ethics of compassion, to the ethics of understanding, to the ethics of trust, to the ethics of love and kindness. The Dalai Lama says, whenever possible, be kind, and it's always possible. This is the heart. When we are living from that place of heart, life opens in ways that we have yet to experience. Miracles happen from a place of open heart. Science of the mind may talk about the mind, but it is only when it comes down into the heart that we finally feel the beauty of what it is to be here in this life. To have the miraculousness of this time here on earth that is so precious, so short, gone in a blip. Check yourself if you are standing in right and wrong any moment, or are you standing in love, open to the Christ consciousness within? And let us rise together. Thank you. All right, take out what you're going to give. Hold it in your hand. Unfold it. Unfold it. This is power. This is presence. This is how we get into the law of circulation, by what we give. This comes from you, and you are God. So give forth, give together, hold it in your hand as we say, God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What we give, we receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am.
You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God. I hold you in my heart. You are a part of me. You are the face of God. You are the face of God.
Tu es l'image de Dieu.
I hold you in my heart.
Tu es l'image de l'amour.
You are a